Imagine that you're on the phone with your pregnant fiancé, chatting, laughing, and deciding where you're going to meet later on. And then you hear a blood-curdling scream. Well, that's what happened to Rob Shafer on April the 4th, 1991. Hey Coffee and Crimers, I'm your host, Belle Fagan. 20-year-old Angela Hammond was a popular young woman living in the town of Clinton, Missouri. It was a small farming town, usually far away from the crimes of the big city. Alongside attending college, Angela, known as Angie to all her friends and family, also worked at a local bank. In January 1991, after finding out she was pregnant, she got engaged to her high school sweetheart, Rob Shafer. He'd been a star athlete in high school and was planning to join the military. At around 10 p.m. on April 4th, 1991, she dropped Rob off at his house after they'd gone to a friend's barbecue. They'd planned to meet again later that night after his mum was home from work because he needed to babysit his younger brother first. Angela went and had a quick visit with her friend Kyla, but as promised, at 11:15 p.m, she called Rob from a payphone due to her friend not having a home landline. The payphone she used was only 7 blocks from Rob's house. So she called to organise where they would meet. While talking to him, she noticed a man circle the block several times in a green Ford pickup truck. She mentioned it to Rob, telling him that the truck had a mural of a fish painted on the back window, but she wasn't telling him in a particularly concerned way, until it pulled up beside her. The man got out, appearing to want to use the payphone, but then went to go back to his truck. He took out a flashlight and flashed it around as if he was looking for something. Angela immediately began describing the man to Rob. She described his appearance as well as the truck. Rob told her to ask him if he needed to use the phone, just in case the phone next to her was broken. So she did, and he said no. So she and Rob carried on their conversation. But just a few moments later, Rob heard Angela scream. He immediately, no hesitation, dropped the phone, ran outside to his car, driving as fast as he could toward the payphone to find out what the heck had happened. Nearly there, a pickup truck sped past him in the other direction. He heard Angela scream, "Robbie," out of the window. He threw his car in reverse, unknowingly damaging the transmission. He followed the truck for 2 miles before his transmission failed as he made a sharp right turn. Unfortunately, as his car came to a stop, he saw the taillights and the dust get further in the distance, and both Angie and the truck were never seen again. An extensive air and land search began for Angela, the abductor, and his truck. Highway Patrol checked hundreds of trucks matching the description, but all were ruled out. With so few leads in this case, investigators obviously started questioning Rob's story, because there were no other witnesses to back up his version of events. But Angela's mum stood by Rob and never for a minute doubted him. He took a polygraph test that showed that he was telling the truth and within a week was cleared. And then 2 witnesses did come forward, saying they'd seen a truck and a suspicious person around the payphones between 11:30 and 11:45 p.m, which was just shortly before Angela's disappearance. They described the man to police as a filthy Caucasian man with glasses, a beard, and a moustache. He was wearing overalls, driving an early 1970s model 2-tone green Ford pickup with the mural of a fish jumping out of the water on the back window. Now, like I said, this was in the April of 1991, but police, obviously checking absolutely everything they could, realised that there had been 2 other abductions/murders that had just happened with a fairly similar MO, I guess you could say, to Angela's abduction. The first happened on January 19th, 1991. 42-year-old convenience store worker Trudy Darby called her son to tell him that she'd seen a suspicious man hanging around outside. Less than 10 minutes later, her son arrived at the store and found it empty. 2 days later, her body was found on a riverbank 10 miles away. She'd been raped and shot twice in the head. The other case involved 30-year-old Cheryl Kenny, another convenience store worker in Missouri. She just vanished after locking up for the night on February the 28th, just a month after Trudy. Her car was found abandoned outside the store. It's believed that she was also kidnapped. And then there was Angela's abduction a month after that. 3 years later, any link to the 2 cases of Trudy and Cheryl to Angela would pretty much be considered just an unhappy coincidence. Jess Rush was actually arrested in connection to Trudy's murder. He was 15 at the time in 1991 and had gone on over those 3 years later to brag about what he had done to Trudy, 2 friends. Eventually, one of those took it seriously and did report it to police. He was arrested and told police that him, his half-brother Marvin, and another individual had decided to go to the K&D convenience store where Trudy worked, steal money and abduct her. He continued to say that they emptied out the register, dragged Trudy out of the store, forced her into the trunk of their car. They drove to a nearby barn where they raped and beat Trudy before shooting her in the head. They put her in the back of the car and drove to a nearby river. Once they opened the trunk, they realised that Trudy was still alive, so they shot her in the head again and then threw her body into the river. So the 3 of them were convicted for Trudy's murder. With Cheryl, it was a little bit different. She'd actually locked up the convenience store early. Instead of at midnight, I believe it was around 9 p.m. that she'd locked the store up. So there are a lot of theories out there of whether she was abducted, whether she chose to disappear. I don't know, there's a lot of theories out there. That's a whole other case for a whole other time. But bottom line, it essentially put them back to square one with Angela's disappearance. At one point, serial killer Kenneth McDuff was suspected, but no link was ever created between he or Angela. Though they hold out little hope that either Angela or Cheryl are alive, there have been several unconfirmed sightings of Angie throughout the US and even in Canada. This has been one of the US's most infamous missing persons case and has been featured on the show Unsolved Mysteries, and for 20 years has remained a cold case, with no movement until 2021, when police started investigating the theory that her abduction could actually have been a case of mistaken identity. They believed that the intended target was the daughter of a police CI, a criminal informant, who has extremely similar features to Angela. At the time of Angela's abduction, there was a CI working for the narcotics department that received a threatening ransom note type letter. You know, the type you see in movies where each letter is cut out from different bits of magazines, like really creepy and really cliched. It read, "People like you deserve what you get. We know where your foxy daughter is at. She will see us soon. Tell," and then they included the CI wife's name, "she has our deepest sympathy in her further loss. Goodbye." And the note was postmarked with the exact date that Angela was taken. The letter correctly identified the CI and the CI wife's name, which would suggest it was legit. Even more of a devastating coincidence was that the informant's daughter was also named Angela and also lived in Clinton, Missouri. Sadly, nothing more has come to light since 2021 and they started exploring that theory. All it's done is just continue the torture for Angela's mum, Marsha, of never being able to have the closure and putting Angela to rest. I've said it before and I will say it again in cases like this. Somebody always knows something. Whoever took Angela has got relatives. They've got a mum, a dad, possibly siblings, cousins, whatever. They have got people in their life. And surely, when you commit this kind of crime, there's telltale signs that your family would know that something is different, something is up with your routine, or I don't know, there's just got to be something that somebody has thought and they've probably just pushed it to the back of their mind, not really giving it much thought, because it's easy to do that when you see somebody all the time or you love somebody. Even when something feels slightly off, it's kind of got to smack you in the face before you're going to jump to any major conclusions. And especially a truck with such an unusual decal on the back. I mean, there cannot be many, if any, trucks that were around at that time that had a fish mural on the back. I just feel that really needed to narrow down the list of possible suspects. So if you ever feel that your gut is just telling you that something might be slightly off, always ask the questions, because there could be somebody out there looking for answers. Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying being here, please leave a review on whatever platform you get your podcasts and click on the link in today's case description to join the Cup of Coffee and Crime Facebook discussion group. Until next week, stay safe.